Is the promise of zero inbox eluding you? Are your professional and personal organization systems a mess? 1001 things screaming for your attention and no idea how to even start. I've definitely felt like this before, and I thought I knew about GTD, or Getting Things Done, which is this book from David Allen, which comes highly recommended. But then I read it at the beginning of last year and I realized that I actually didn't know a lot. I've started to implement a lot of the ideas into my workflows, and there's definitely been a considerable improvement in how I do things. I don't think it's panacea. The whole idea for me is to get to a mind like water where it just flows and there's clarity. I'm not 100% there yet, maybe I'll never be, but I think I'm getting a bit ahead of myself. In this video, I'm just going to break down what is GTD, how I actually think about productivity. I think it's an important part there too, because I think it's very easy to get lost in this productivity space. I'm going to speak about the core components of GTD and break them out into a bit more detail, and then just some concluding remarks built on some of my experiences with GTD and some of the things that are lacking. In the next video, I'm going to speak about how you can implement some of these ideas in Logseq. So let's get into my database. Before getting into the content, a quick word of thanks to everyone who supported the channel by watching, sharing, or contributing financially. If you'd like to support financially, my course Logseq Mastery is now available. You can also support at Coffee with small donations or monthly donations, or at the sites Buy Me a Coffee or Patreon, although note the fees there. All of these links and some additional affiliate links are available at my link tree in the description below. So what is Getting Things Done, and how does it help us achieve this mind like water? Getting Things Done is a productivity book / methodology popularized by David Allen. And it's become a cornerstone book for knowledge workers, just in the way that it breaks down setting up your work so that you can effectively do things and keep track of all your open loops. It talks about 5 clear steps that apply order to chaos. The first step is capture. So collect what has your attention. What are all the things that are open loops in your brain? I mean, it could be your mom's birthday that you have to get things for, something for work, so many open loops going on all at the same time. Make sure that you capture that into a system. The next is clarify. And what that means is to process what it means for you. Think about the totality of completing it. And then the next step is organize. Put that thing where it belongs. So making sure that you're putting in the right files so that you can go and find it later. No, not just like leaving it in your downloads folder. The fourth thing is reflect. And that just means going back to those places where you've stored your information or your reminders and your to-dos, and making sure that you're processing them so that you don't have these open loops in your brain that will then be causing psychic drag. And then step number 5 is engage. Simply just do the task. What I'm going to try and do is distill down the things that are most important for me in GTD. It's helpful to start with a disclaimer on my thoughts on productivity. I'm really cautious with the productivity mindset and prefer to frame it differently. For me, the goal of any productivity techniques is not to do more and achieve more. I think that's like, you can never get off the treadmill. You'll just be the rat who is running for the cheese. For me, the goal is to get to a place of mind like water, where I know that everything is under control and that I can stop worrying, and that my brain is not going off on random tangents thinking, oh dear, I have to go do this. And something which is useful here is this quote which comes from the book GTD. Negative feelings from work come from breaking trust with yourself, not from having too much to do. And that is saying to yourself, I need to do this, and then not actually getting to it. David Allen's approach and recommendation is all about being able to renegotiate the arrangements that you have with yourself so that you're not breaking trust with yourself and, in essence, disappointing your executive person upstairs who is not your boss, but you. It's like, how can you manage everything so that you know that you're under control and that you are keeping your unwritten promises to yourself? Productivity is the art of channeling and rather removing obstacles and removing this psychic drag. So it's about clearing up your mental RAM so that you can work on the big picture. It's all about being able to focus at the right level at the right time. And I'm sure you've probably realized or been exposed to toxic productivity people with clickbaity titles, 10x, 5x, whatever. That stuff can drive you up the wall. So what I've done, if that is getting to you, is I've included a SoundCloud meditation in the links below. It was a great meditation for me at like a key point last year when things were, going pretty rough, and this really helped me just to like relax and find a little bit of calm in the storm. Now, I feel like for every video I make, I could make a whole bunch of caveats. There's so much else out there. There's so much that is not being said, but anyways, I'm just trying my best here. So this video assumes a basic knowledge of Logseq, first of all. And then it's also important to clarify that there's no perfect way of doing this. It's just a way that works for you, And one thing that I said before in the course is that software is not the solution, it's rather your approach that is the solution. And you need to customize that approach so that you can use it effectively because your brain works differently to my brain. Take the principles and apply them anywhere. There's a lot of people who like just finding a template and seeing if they can make it work for them. That's 100% okay. I am not one of those people. I love configuring things like to the nth degree so that it works for me. And if by some miracle my way extrapolates perfectly to your way, I'd be super happy for that. Another thing is that you can do GTD in any software. I mean, Airtable, Asana, Trello, Notion, Monday.com, whatever. It's all just a matter of configuring your approach and how you are actually going to implement these principles. As always, so many of these things are easier said than done. I'm definitely not someone who's got everything right and has got it all figured out in this GTD space. In fact, I don't speak very much about the reflect part because I don't have like a proper weekly review that I'm sticking to, and that's one of the biggest parts of GTD actually. But I would be a hypocrite if I was telling you, oh, you have to do it like this. I want to get better at it, and this is one of the things that I'm working on a lot this year, but at the moment, I'm still not there. So this is also just the start of this whole GTD workflow. There's a lot of automation / friction removal that can still happen. I'm working on a lot of different things, and I still think there's like a little bit of room for improvement, but for me, this seems to be working quite nicely. So now closing up these points, let's get into GTD's core components. At its core, David Allen says that GTD is all about managing lists. Now, this is why Logseq actually works well with GTD, but we'll get into that a little bit later because it's using the block-based system with different tags. The first thing that you need to do, and it was in that workflow earlier, is capture all your open loops. And that is clearing your mind of all the things that you need to do. Now, in the book, he talks about like a whole approach for going and doing that, and he really encourages you to invest a lot of time in this upfront, like taking days. So this is not a quick fix solution. It's not going to make you more productive now. You really have to invest the time there. This is a quote from the book. A complete and current projects list is the best way to move from tree hugging to forest management. Now, what does he mean by tree hugging? Thinking at too granular level and losing the forest for the trees. So that's when you are stuck in the details and not able to elevate yourself at a strategic level to think about the right questions for your company or even to manage your own tasks. So it's all about just being able to zoom out and just like leave the detail where it is. This expression, like get out of the weeds, and I definitely used to be in the weeds a lot, and I think the best thing that one can do is just like slow down and zoom out. Take the pressure off, allow yourself to think a little bit, and being able to capture all these open loops helps you to get your head out of the weeds. Now, how do you do this? Well, it's all about having an effective capture technique. So a typical workflow would be creating an inbox and then allocating tasks to those different inboxes. Now, if you can imagine in the old days when you had those like paper stacks on your desk, that would be your inbox. Now, how can you do that in a digital realm? And we'll get into how you can do this in Logseq, but that's thinking about that inbox, having a visual reminder of all the things that you need to do. The next thing is clarifying your thinking. And one of the first things to think about there is labeling items appropriately. Is it a project or is it a task? Now, what are projects and what are tasks? A project is a multi-step thing. Basically, it's made up of multiple discrete components or different steps in order to build it up to the highest level of a project. A task is a single action to complete in order to complete a project or to maintain an area. Now, where did this areas thing come from suddenly? For those of you who might be familiar with the para methodology in Tiago Forte's methods, Tiago speaks about you achieve projects and maintain areas. And in business sense, I like to think of this as like business as usual is an area, and projects is like some new innovation that you're rolling out in your company. So that's the way that I think about projects versus areas. But that's getting a bit off tangent. The next thing in GTD terms, which is super important, is identifying your next actions. And this idea of identifying your next actions is really powerful. If you leave a meeting or any engagement that you have with your team and you're not sure of what you have to do next, that leaves you, clutching at straws, thinking, I have to maybe go do this. It leaves that doubt. And if you can identify your next actions and write those things down, like everyone is 100% clear of what is required from them. Another tip that I've seen is making sure that your lists aren't fuzzy. So don't just put like a noun there, like project or mom or whatever. Like you need to make it actionable and completable. So when you return to it, you don't get confused with why you put this thing there as a placeholder. Like, it's not going to do its function. Most importantly, I think, is making sure that your projects have clear outcomes. Like, make sure that you're working to a defined goal. And if you have that written somewhere, it's nice to be able to refer back and see, like, what are we actually trying to achieve? And also keep people in line, particularly senior leadership, when they go off and decide that they actually want to do something else. You're like, no, but this is our objective. So if you clarify your thinking the first time, whenever you come back to that point, it'll be very easy to find your point of departure for that project again, because you've already written out what is the requirement there. Another thing here, which is tangentially related, is that a large problem with people's management systems is that they blend in a few actionable items with a massive unactionable things that, although have value, have no place. So when these things aren't managed, it gets a bit messy. I don't know if that's from the book or if that's something that I wrote, because I don't know if they would write it gets a bit messy in the book. But anyways, clarify things. If they're actionable, make sure they're like in some way that you're going to come and find them later. If they're not actionable, put them in the right place. Another thing which I like to think about when I'm putting things into my Logseq database specifically is think of it like you're talking to your future self, because your future self is going to thank you when you've specified more detail than you believe is now necessary. I think we underestimate the importance of context and like just how much you're actually thinking about in the moment. It's also important to clarify that this shouldn't be anxiety provoking. David Allen's whole approach is seeing things as they are rather than as they should be. I think those shoulds are really what make us feel guilty. And again, that is one of those things that you are breaking trust with yourself if you don't do those things, those should things. Organize, that's just putting things where they belong. Is there a physical folder, maybe a digital folder? Does something have to go into your calendar? Is there a reference folder that you'll be able to go to later when you need that thing for the project? Does it need to go in trash? Put it in trash. Clear your downloads folder. The reflection step, it's all about keeping track of your open loops. So you need to commit to a weekly review, which I'm guilty of not doing, and it's something which I'm looking to be better at in the future. But basically the whole idea with this reflection is that you need to trust your system. To be able to go and find the information you need much later down the line is really, really valuable. I think my database has been built up over the course of 18 months now from Rome and Logseq, and I'm finding things that I didn't actually tag properly, and that is indicating like breaks of trust. But recently things have been properly tagged. But yeah, you really need to trust your database to return the information that you need when you need it. And there's the reflect bullet points that I was just speaking to, so you can have a look there on screen. And then engage, obviously, just go and do the work, execute. Not like a robot in a machine, but in a joyful way. So now we're going back into PowerPoint, something which I haven't done in a long time, but I'm going to show you one of the flowcharts that is really popular in the GTD framework, and this is the idea of stuff getting done. Now, I don't actually like this top to bottom approach, so I'm going to do something a little bit different, although this is there for you for reference. I'm going to look at it from this workflow perspective. So the first part in our funnel, as we've spoken about, is capture. The next part is clarify. And then the third part is organize. As you can see, I've left out the reflect and engage because engage is just doing the work, and doing the weekly review is not something which I'm actively doing. But anyways, getting into it, the capture workflow, let's look at all the things that might come there. You get emails, ideas, files, sources, meeting notes, a whole bunch of inputs, and these are coming at you throughout the day. Now, the next step here is to clarify. What is the next action? Or maybe there's no action required. But let's start with what is the next action workflow and then go on from there. Is it actionable in less than 2 minutes? If it is, the theory is do it now. If it's not actionable in less than 2 minutes, it needs to go through a step of either two things. You need to defer it or you need to delegate it. Now, if you're deferring it, you can put it in your calendar to do it at a specific time, or you can put it in some next actions task manager, and the idea there is to do it ASAP. I'll make a point on this now when I just speak about prioritization. If you delegate it, what you want to do is add some sort of marker that illustrates that you are waiting for that task to come back from whoever you delegated it to. Now, what if there's no action required? So if there's no action required, maybe you need to put it into reference so that there's easy retrieval when you need it. Or maybe that's some sort of archive. Maybe you need to put it into a someday maybe list. And this is also things that you can review later down the line. Or maybe these are your reminders. And then the final thing that you can do is you can put in trash. Some things which I want to add just at the end of this video that I think are very important to clarify within this GTD approach. And the first thing there is that GTD does not talk about prioritization, funnily enough. It talks about just having your stacks well managed and then going and doing those tasks as soon as you can. Now, I think this is a bit of a shortcoming of the methodology, but it also bears reminding that everyone has their own different methods for prioritization. One person that I could point to is He. He has a nice framework which is doing 10K work. So you got $10 work, you got $100 work, $1,000 work, and $10,000 work. And that's all about identifying like what are your big ticket items, the stuff that doesn't give you the dopamine hit, but you know needs to get done in order to, really move the needle long term. So a little bit to be desired in the prioritization space, but go check out He. Something that really resonates with me is that the most important thing that you can do is have a complete and comprehensive list of things to work on, so that you have clarified your thinking and you're not having to rethink or redo the work when you get back to picking up that task. There's a nice part in the book where he says you're either planning work, you're doing planned work, or you're doing ad hoc work. Now, which one of those do you want to maximize? I think you want to maximize doing planned work rather than doing ad hoc work. You really want to try and minimize that ad hoc work. And in a business, it's very difficult to suddenly squash that ad hoc work, but sorting out your systems and processes will definitely help with that. But it is a good idea to choose your work and be able to track it and learn from your processes. Something super random now, learning how to type. So he mentions this in the book. It's like one of those things which you don't think about, but we spend so much time typing and it can really be a game changer, moving from a pick and hunt and then getting to a space where you touch typing. Now, I worked on this at the beginning of last year and it was really difficult. I was typing 35 or 40 words per minute. I was like, oh, that's okay. And then I started practicing touch typing. I plummeted. I was doing 29 or 30 words per minute. But now, after a year of practice, so I don't even know if this belongs in the video, but these are some of the tutorials that I use to get up to speed, and hopefully they can be helpful for you too. It's just one of these quick wins. It's like using keyboard shortcuts. They can help so much. It sounds a bit trivial when you first look at it, but actually when you start using keyboard shortcuts, it unlocks a lot of speed for you. But again, speed is not the objective. Being able to do things effectively is the objective. If you want to read the book, I can highly recommend it. It's really a good book. If you want, you can also check out the book summary on short form. For those of you who haven't been exposed to short form is a book summary service. I am an affiliate of short form. They're not sponsoring this video. I like the service because I use the book summaries once I've read the book to help me backtrack and find the information that I might need without having to go through the whole book again. I can also download the PDF and put that into my database, which is really useful for my own workflow. So they've got really good book summaries, and this one here on getting things done is particularly good, and you can go in and download the PDF and then add it to your Logseq database. That's how I do it. Nothing really replaces reading the book, but this really augments your experience of reading the book, and I've got lots of books that I'm going back to the notes here instead of having to reread the books. Thanks again for watching. I will see you in the next video, hopefully, for how to implement GTD and Logseq. As I said, it's all about managing lists, and Logseq's block-based approach really allows you to pull the different blocks into the lists that you need. So very useful from that perspective. I'll see you then.